All right, greetings, class, and welcome to week number 3. That is right, week number 3 of your 9443 class, which is your academic libraries class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. JSK Austin. And this week we are going to have kind of well, I shouldn't even say kind of. This is going to be a shorter check-in video because there just really isn't a lot to discuss right now today. So I'm going to go ahead and by the way, in this class, not the intellectual freedom class, in the academic libraries class, a lot of times what I talk about in the check-in videos is actually going to be unrelated to the content that's within the modules because the modules do their own thing. And so I feel that with the modules, the readings themselves offer sufficient coverage to what we're talking about that week. So a lot of times when I do the check-in videos, we actually end up talking about some other things that can be helpful for people to know if they are thinking about or considering going into academic libraries. So, having said that, what we are going to talk about very quickly this week, first of all, we're going to have a little state of the course update. Just to let you all know, there will not be a check-in video next week, September the 12th, which is a week from this Tuesday of this week. So if you are watching this on Tuesday, September the 5th, then a week from now on September the 12th, we are actually going to have our first guest speaker within this class, and our guest speaker is going to be Jennifer Hughes, who is the assistant director of the libraries at Coastal Carolina University down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And Jennifer is going to basically do a little presentation on the hours situation that Coastal's library had. Yes, the hours situation, H-O-U-R-S. And the reason why we're going to be talking about this is because Coastal was one of the only universities within the entire nation prior to the pandemic that was full service 24/7 during the spring and fall semesters. And by full service, what I mean is not just that they were open 24 hours a day, but at Saturday at 3 o'clock in the morning at Coastal Carolina before the pandemic, or on Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning before the pandemic, you could actually go into Coastal Carolina's library and get reference help right there in person. From a lot of times it wouldn't be an actual reference librarian, but it would be a circulation worker who was trained in doing basic reference. And the pandemic changed that, and so Jennifer is going to talk a little bit about Coastal's experiences with that, as well as what Coastal had to do during and after the pandemic, or I should say after the peak of the pandemic, in order to deal with their hours situation. So determining hours of operation is not something that academic libraries just enter into haphazardly. There's definitely some discussion that goes into that. And so after you hear Jennifer's presentation next week, I think that you all will be a little better informed about what goes into determining hours at an academic library. So I wanted you all to have that. As far as the next assignment that you have due, what we want to do is we are going to come over here, and the next assignment that you all have due is actually going to be due, well, aside from your discussion board prompts that you have every week, the next non-discussion board prompt assignment that you have, or regular discussion board prompt assignment that you have, is going to be your review of an academic library website, and that is going to be worth 10 possible points, and you are going to basically just write a review of the website. And as you can see below, I'm actually not going to scroll back down there again, but I want you all to be aware that, yes, each of you has been assigned an academic library's website that you are going to review, and you've got some helpful resources here that will help you determine whether or not the academic library website that you review is, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, up to snuff. If it's good, if it's bad, what improvements does it need, what things does it do well and should not feel any pressing need to improve upon, etc., etc. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how you all handle that assignment. It's a bit of an unorthodox assignment that I had that I added to the course after I took this course over. And I really feel that nowadays, because just so much is conducted through academic library websites these days. A lot of students get their library help remotely. They get articles emailed to them through interlibrary loan, electronically delivered, and so forth and so on. A lot of students are learning how to do their research, their library research through the library website, and never even come in to talk to the librarian directly, and so forth. So I do think it's very important and a growing area of importance for librarians to know the differences between a good academic library website and a bad academic library website. So that is why you all had that assignment, and I do hope that you all will enjoy that assignment. And that assignment is it's done as a discussion board prompt, so that even though it's not one of the regular 2-point prompts, and you don't have to respond to a classmate with these, and you have a little a very basic rubric, but you have a rubric here. This will show you how you're going to be scored and those sorts of things. And what I want you all to do after you complete this assignment, after everybody has completed this assignment, I'm really hoping that what you all will do is go back and look at the things that your classmates wrote about the academic library websites that they were assigned, so that, again, you get more and more of a feel for what makes a good and what makes a bad academic library website. And when you go into professional practice, if you go into an academic library, this should come back in handy, because there may be some of you who decide that that you want to recommend that your library add this feature to the library website, or remove this feature from the library website, or, you know, rearrange some things, and the possibilities are endless. But I want you all to, if you get hired by an academic library, I want you all to be ready to say, after working for the library for a few months, maybe even a year or two, but after you've been there for a while, to say, well, this is something that we could improve upon on our library website, and hopefully the powers that be at the academic library you work at will say, oh yes, that's a good idea. They will take you seriously, and they will incorporate your ideas. That would be splendid for me and you and everybody else. Okay, and so that's pretty much it with the state of the course updates. There are a few other things that I do want to note, and so we will get into that in a second. Give me one moment. All right, so let's go ahead and minimize. I do want to just take note of what the discussion board prompt is for this week very quickly, and then we will actually talk about something completely different. But yes, I do want to get into just showing you all that for this week we will be talking about, within the course materials at least, we will be talking about organizational culture and organizational structure. What I will say about that is that this is completely anecdotal, and I would love to see some actual research done on this, and maybe somebody in this class will do the research. If you become an academic librarian and you have to publish in order to get promotion and tenure, then maybe this will be you one day. But in my anecdotal experience in both observing academic libraries and then also talking to people who work at other academic libraries, it is my position that academic libraries where there is communication among the different departments and units, they do actually tend to function a little better. I've seen both. I've seen academic libraries where, you know, you had the reference people, and you had the archivists, and you had the technology people, and you had the tech services people and the catalogers, and everybody was just kind of in their silo doing their own thing. Nobody knew what people outside of their department was doing. And because of those issues, what you ended up with was a lot of misunderstanding and disrespect, even as far as what other people were contributing. So like, I would see those situations where the departments weren't communicating with each other. And so then the reference librarians would turn around and be like, I don't see why the tech people can't do this, and that. I mean, what are they doing all day anyway, blah, blah, blah. And then you would see the same thing. Well, with the other departments, well, the catalogers they're thinking that the reference people just work 2 or 3 hours a day on the reference desk and then don't do anything else. And all of that comes from a lack of communication. It's really that simple. It comes from people not not building a synergy within the library. It comes from departments not cross-training. I'm a very big believer in basic cross-training so that everybody can at least do some basic circulation and some basic reference. But then also even having your reference librarians being able to do a little bit of basic copy cataloging and so forth and so on. And having that sort of cross-training, it allows people to step in when you're short-staffed or when you have layoffs. It allows it also allows, when you do get additional hires, it allows you to repurpose some of your other positions and to put certain duties specifically on your new hire or your newly created position or what have you. But I definitely think that communication between units and cross-training is the way to go. But again, this is anecdotal, and I don't know if there is, I have not seen it. I've looked for it and not seen it. I don't know if there's research out there that really demonstrates that libraries that cross-train and libraries where departments communicate among each other actually do run more smoothly. But in my anecdotal experience, that tends to be the case. So I believe in team building. I do believe in doing certain things like having staff days and certain other things that allow people from different units to communicate with one another. A thing that a lot, probably most academic libraries do is they have committees where people from different departments are on these library-wide committees. Like, for instance, you might have a DEI committee, and you might have a cataloger and an archivist and a reference librarian and a tech services librarian and a technology person all on that committee. And that is a way to kind of build synergy, to have people come together, know what each other are doing, even if they're not in the same department. And that does, in my experience, eliminate some of these hostilities. Again, I would love to see actual research on that. So if one of you is planning to become an academic librarian, that might be something that you can build your whole research agenda around. I'm just saying, because a lot of places do grant librarians tenure. Okay. All right. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then I'm going to let the readings and materials within the module just kind of speak for themselves from there. So let's go ahead and talk about a totally different topic. So finally, let's kind of end on this. I'm going to talk about this for probably about 7 minutes, which will put us at about 20 minutes total. And that's 20 minutes unsped up, so it should be even less if you did speed this up. I'm going to put a link to this article within the announcement, but this is from Inside Higher Ed. Have academic libraries staffing numbers really declined that much over the past decade? This was published earlier this year, earlier in 2023. I'm not a big fan. I've read other things that were written by Joshua Kim. I'm not a big fan of how Joshua writes. I do like the brevity, because a lot of the things that I've read by Joshua Kim have been very, very short. And I do like that Joshua writes in a concise manner and writes in a very, has a lot of brevity to the writings that he does. But at the same time, it's kind of like, there's a lot more that could be said, and it seems like, I don't know, it seems like Joshua just kind of writes for quantity instead of quality. But anyway, that's just me soapboxing. But what I am going to say is that we need better advocates, basically, for staffing when it comes to academic libraries. We need better advocates, and that is just the bottom line. What we are seeing is that, and this is the data that spans from 2012 to 2020, as far as, excuse me for a second. So my big issue with the data that Kim is using here and how it is presented is there's something suspect going on right away. And Kim notes this, by the way. So what we're seeing is numbers that reflect that from 2012 to 2020, we've gone from about 67,000 people who are employed as full and part-time academic library faculty and staff, all the way down to 38,500. Okay, so we've seen, according to this, a very significant drop-off. But Kim notes that this has nothing to do with the pandemic, because it's before the pandemic. Kim notes this right here, and this is something that makes me question the entire data set, honestly. In 2012, we have 67,000, and then we go to 2013 and 44,000. And Kim even says here, not sure why there's such a significant drop between 2012 and 2013. Probably some change in how library staff are counted. I'm gonna say this: I was I was working in academic libraries in 2013. In 2012, I was a full-time PhD student, but by 2013, I had become an academic librarian again, working at Midlands Technical College in Columbia, South Carolina. And what I'm gonna say is, if there was something that caused 23,000 academic library staff members across the country to lose their jobs within 12 months' time, it would have been a big deal. People would have noticed it. People would have been reporting on it. People would have been publishing on it. There is nothing, okay? So something is going on here that's not right. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up and even pointing this out is I do want to say the numbers can be misleading at times. And we all know that. The numbers can be misleading at times. And so what I don't want you all to do, and this happens every single year, what I don't want you all to do is look at some sort of academic library downsizing, or see some sort of mass layoffs at one academic library somewhere in the country and say, oh crap, I've chosen a bad career choice. I'm not going to be able to find a job. I think you are, especially if you are willing to move. If you are willing to move and you have these skills, if you are willing to relocate and you have the competencies and the potential to be an academic librarian, yes, you might have to work in a library tech role or a paraprofessional role for maybe even a few years after you graduate. But eventually, especially if you are able to move and willing to move, you're eventually going to get that job that gives you librarian rank. And that's what I want for all of you. Now, I will say, unfortunately, the nature of this business is that there are always library school students who don't actually end up working as librarians. They might end up being forever paraprofessionals or forever library techs. But I wish I could say that 100% of you are going to eventually be quote unquote librarians in job title after you graduate at some point, but that's just, I would be lying to you if I said that. Some of you are going to end up leaving the field, or you're going to end up working as paraprofessionals or something of that nature, okay? But what I don't want you all to do is feel that you have picked an incorrect or a bad career choice just because of some suspect numbers that are out there, and people who are reading suspect numbers don't have the full context and are drawing erroneous conclusions based on bad or incomplete information. Okay? So that's something I want you all to keep in mind. I will say that I believe that the Bureau of Labor Statistics is probably where you want to go if you are trying to look for trends as far as librarianship in general and how viable this field is going to be in the future. But I think that there is a lot of promise ahead for librarianship in the future. And I will say this even. A lot of people will tell you, and I'm sure most of you heard this because I heard it. A lot of people will say, why would you even go into library science? The internet this, the internet that. I don't think libraries are going to exist in the next few years. People have been calling for the death of libraries since before the internet. People called for the death of libraries once microfilm and microfiche became a thing. Libraries are still around. Libraries are still around in the age of the internet. I'm going to tell you right now, libraries are going to exist after artificial intelligence and after the internet as well. Something's going to replace the internet one day. And you know what? Libraries are still going to be here. That's Dr. Jason's take. I'm sticking to it. All of that to say, yes, as long as you are willing to work hard and prove yourself, yes, this is a viable field and there are going to be academic library jobs out there available to you. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. That is a word of encouragement because I want you all to feel encouraged and I want you all to feel that what you are doing is going to benefit you strongly in the future. But aside from that, let's keep this under 21 minutes. So let's stop it right now. I am Dr. Jace, and this is a welcoming space, and I want you all to make your academic libraries welcoming spaces as well. All right, I'm gonna leave you with that. I will see you next week in the sync session. I think you're gonna like Jennifer. She's one of my favorite people. I love her. That's why I stay in touch with her even after all of these years, because I haven't worked at Coastal since 2018. But I am hoping that Jennifer and I will be friends for life, and I think you all are gonna like her too. See you next week.